is going on, guys, and welcome to another weekly recap where we're going to go over the trades that we took during the week and pretty much break down the thought process and what candlestick analysis or technical analysis we decided to take advantage of when it was presented to us. We have a couple W's, and I believe we took a lesson this week as well as we went 6-1 this weekend. Amazing week overall. Started off a little rocky, but overall great week in terms of profits for US 30 or Dow Jones. Let's just go ahead and get into the breakdown. So as you can see here, we went. We first trade we took. It technically was a W, but it went. It hit our stop loss essentially. It hit our stop loss first, then went into our take profit. So we did take a lesson in that particular trade, and let's just go over it. Right. Let me go ahead into the 1 hour time frame here. Let's just do a recap. So just a quick replay from here. We do need to go a little further. Perfect. So when the week opened up, this is what we were looking at when this is what the charts have presented to us in the beginning. As you can see, we had a complete downtrend or what I would like to call the pullback, right? The overall trend for the trade is an uptrend. I thought this was as far as the pullback was going to go. So with that being said, we're in an uptrend. This is the current pullback. I'm going to wait to see if there's some type of consolidation before I decide to get into the trade, right? So this was my idea. I mean, obviously, if it were to break and hold under this support line, I would rethink my entry and maybe wait a little bit. But I was like, all right, if it does go ahead into our support area and it does start to consolidate, my thought process is, all right, sellers are losing momentum, which is good because the overall trend is an uptrend. We want to wait for a loss of momentum and we want to see a continuation candle before we jump into the trade, right? So this is what I was looking at. Then I decided to go into obviously the lower time frames. You want to see what each candle is doing. You want to see what the noise is about. Why I also decided to take the buy idea as well. As you can see here, it started to hit lower lows and then never really broke again for the lower highs, right? Each lower high is supposed to be lower than the previous lower high. It started to kind of get stagnant around this area right here. And then ultimately consolidated. Then it started to form little, I would say, little structure of an uptrend with the higher highs and the higher lows. So here we have a higher low followed by, can't technically consider this a higher high just due to the fact that the previous lower high hasn't been broken. But I did take it into consideration that each lower low is getting essentially higher, which is essentially for the uptrend would be higher lows. At the moment, just because the higher high wasn't broken at this particular area right here, technically it's not an uptrend. Still continuation of a downtrend. That's what I learned throughout this process of this particular trade. Because like I said, I took a lesson here. But that was my thought process at the time, right? So I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to place my stop loss a little bit below the candle low right here. So I had a couple pips extra, totally risking about 99 pips there. Then things started to play out. We'll play it in slow. It's like, all right, candles are still going. They're consolidating. They're breaking through and consolidating, right? Let's pause it right here and we'll go one step back. So once it started to form like how it did right here, I was like, all right, it's refusing to break the lows. So it's starting to respect the support area. So I was like, all right, I think my analysis is correct. I see a continuation candle. I'm going to jump in. I jumped in on this candle right here, this green one. Thought it was a continuation candle. You know, you have a strong momentum engulfing candle. It's like, all right, let's go ahead and jump in. So we got into the trade, right? Then it started to play out like this. I was like, all right, we're starting to get in profits. It's feeling real good. I was like, I'm going to make my TP the candle high up there. So continuing playing on into the move. Then it started to reverse on me. So it was super, super close right here to hitting my TP, which is the candle high that I wanted. That was my original TP1. Once it got to there, I was like, all right, it's just a little bit more. I can wait. This is a perfect example of how the market is so unpredictable, and you got to take the money when it's there for you, right? I could have done one of two things once all of this was happening. First, once it got super close to my TP, I could have moved stop loss into break even, and I could have also took partials. But on this particular trade, I didn't do that. I was kind of caught in the moment. It was like, oh, it's right there. It's going to be there. And it ended up reversing on me. As you can see here, it just ended up tanking. Again, just a learning lesson. We're all going to take these lessons when we trade. Everyone's is going to be different, or some are going to be the same. But every trader takes lessons, even the ones that perform at the highest level possible. The Q Banks, the Lambos, Raul's making $500,000-$600,000 a week. These guys also miss moves too. So don't beat yourself up because you hit an SL. Learn from your mistake so that way you can take it into the next step and, essentially not ever make that same mistake again because you learned from it. And I would say too, learn your lesson fast. In trading, it will humble you. If you don't learn your lesson right away, you're going to keep getting hit with that same lesson until you learn. All right, but back into the trade, I didn't move my stop loss into break even, and then I also didn't take partials because I was sold and just essentially married to the trade that it was going to go up, right? So I didn't take my profits. Ended up, what did it do? Stop me out. Immediately stopped me out, right? Once it stopped me out, what did it end up happening? Right back up. Another thing here, I could have just, went a little lower to this last candle high from the previous week and maybe put it over there, right? It would have been more risk. Yes, I would just have to lower what I am risking. But I could have put it a little bit lower than that candle low, but I didn't. I was trying to, not give too much to the market. 100 pips seemed like the right thing at the time. Obviously, the setup will determine how much risk you use per trade. So didn't really peep or take that into consideration when taking this particular trade. But overall analysis, fortunately and unfortunately, was correct, right? Because right after it took up stop loss and we didn't follow our rules in terms of moving into stop loss into break even or taking partials when it reached a certain peak or a certain number, I didn't do either of those, right? So it ended up stopping me out and then ended up going right back in the opposite direction right after. Not only that, it continued to go, almost hitting TP and then right back down. So then pretty much this was one of those confusing days, right? This is one of those confusing days where you thought it's going to have some momentum, some traction, and then it ends up consolidating, right? So then over here, moving on into our next play, I noticed right here that it wasn't breaking our previous support from the session prior, right? So I was like, all right, it still looks like it's a lot of buyer's momentum at the time. Again, I'm still thinking that this is going to be the support that happens and continues to go up after. But ultimately, I was prepared for the buys this week. So because of the pullback and everything that happened, so I was like, all right, let's see if this starts to hit my normal, the area of support that I'm looking for. I'll go ahead and jump into the trade again. And this is how this play played out right here. Boom. So immediately we get a huge, huge, huge candle toward the downside, right? And then on the 5 minutes, it looks even better because it starts to show areas of consolidation. I use the 5 minute time frame for entries. So at this particular time here, just kind of watching it play out. Once I saw it hit my area of support again, go ahead and jumped into the trade, right? But in areas like this, we want to see continuations of strong buying candles before jumping into the trade. And this trade took off. Not only did it hit our TP once we entered the trade, this one, I would say, if I'm being transparent, I was a little bit more aggressive on this trade. I didn't patiently wait for it to get certain candles I want. I kind of was like, you know what? It hits my area of support. The candle already rejected a few times there. Once it gets back to that entry level that I'm looking for, I'm going to go ahead and just jump into the trade. So this one, I would definitely say I wasn't conservative on this particular trade. I was more aggressive. Conservative is me more just, waiting for every single one of my confirmations before jumping into a trade. And sometimes I get a little aggressive, don't want to wait. There's no good or bad. It's what you're okay with at the time. Also, make sure that you're okay with what you're doing, right? So if I'm aggressive, I know if I lose a trade, it's because I wasn't patient. I was being too aggressive, didn't wait for my confirmations. Now, sometimes when it comes to conservative, the move can sometimes leave you, right? So you can be right about your analysis, but it just doesn't give you that small confirmation you're looking for, and then the move leaves you. So conservative has its pros and cons. Being aggressive also has its pros and cons. Just be okay with the decision that you take, okay? So that was the first time we ate off, and this is all in the signals chat that we have. I send every single trade I take, I send it in that group chat. The link is below in this video. So make sure you check that out. But back into this trade, not only did we eat on this move once, we end up taking this move again once it hit that support level. So you see, it hit our TP, took us out of the trade. We were done, right? Then I set an alert there. It's like, you know what? Let's see what happens. So you can see the candle or the market starts to move its way right back down. Then once I see areas of confirmation again, I noticed this candle right there got aggressive again on this trade and entered it upon entry. And then what it ended up doing, it ended up hitting TP all over again. Boom. Right there. That same trade ended up hitting TP again. And I was happy. I was done for the day. This was 134 pips in profit, and we did it twice. So it was like 270 pips in one day, which is great on your end. If you're a trader, right? So 270 pips overall for the day. You know what? I was done. So sometimes learning when to stop trading is also knowing when you had a good day, not just a bad day. So I had a great day, didn't want to risk anymore. It was a really good trade that led into our huge P&L for this week, right? Now, moving on to the next trade. Now, at this point in the week, we are 2-1. So we took one lesson in the trade, in the chart in the morning. Previous day, we left it alone. Came back the next day, took 2 W's on the same setup. So now we're 2-1 for the week. Now, we go over here, okay? So once we ate off that play for the second time on that buy, we left the rest of the day alone. We didn't trade, right? And then all of this ended up happening. So followed into the next session because I started to see that the market was starting to go down still, meaning that the pullback essentially was not over. The pullback is still happening, and we're in that pullback still. So with that being said, I just took what the market gives me. I know the overall trend is a buy. Right now, we're in the middle of what we call a pullback, which is essentially counter trading on the overall trend. But I understood that and I was okay with it. Hence my tight stop losses, right? So my stop losses are usually anywhere from 100 and 150 pips or so, depending on what the market. That's what I feel comfortable with. If it requires more of a risk, then maybe I'll take it, but less money involved, right? So taking what the market is giving me, I understand that it is in a complete, essentially, pullback or downtrend at the moment. With that being said, it ended up giving me an engulfing candle that took out the entire low of the market right here. Let's go ahead and zoom in so you can see that. Ended up taking the low of the markets out over here. And I was like, you know what? If it gives me a strong engulfing candle, I'll go ahead and jump into the trade. So it gave me a strong engulfing candle towards the downside. And I decided, you know what? Next candle, if this candle holds, I'm getting in. Right? So let me replay it back to show you exactly where I got in. Right here. So the reason I got into this trade, again, more of an aggressive trade, but it did give me a lot of the confirmations I was looking for. We're in a pullback. The market has been creating lower lows each single time. And this, from the previous day, after it kept going down, it let me know that the market was not done pulling back. So I got this candle right here. I was like, all right, that is a strong engulfing candle that indicates, that sellers have momentum in the correct direction at the moment. So then I was like, all right, so that's a huge candle. We're expecting another huge candle. I could have been aggressive right there and gotten at that point, and I would have just earned myself more money. But I didn't because I wanted to wait a little bit. Then I got a second engulfing candle. So two engulfing candles indicating continuation towards the downside. The market previous day let us know that it was going already towards the downside and that the pullback isn't over. So you know what? I'm jumping into this trade right now because I don't want to miss the move. And this right here was for 131 pips, and I took this move twice during the same setup, right? So sometimes the setup is going to present itself. You just have to take advantage. So I personally took advantage of this setup again 2 times in a row. So one was right here. I got aggressive. I got into the trade. And what did it end up doing? It ended up hitting TP right away, right? The TP was 130. I could have went for more, but I only took what the market gave me, right? And how did I get my TP? If you just move to the left on higher time frames, you will start to notice areas that hold both strong as support and resistance. And that's essentially how I personally choose my stop loss and take profits. I know there's a lot of traders that do it that way, and a lot of traders that do it a little bit different, right? Some use Fibonacci to let them know where their stop loss and TPs will be. So it's up to you how you take it. That's how I like to do it, just going with market's history. So after that, then the move decided to present itself again, right? So it went towards the upside. I was like, if it hits this area and consolidates even a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and get into the trade. So just kind of got to wait for it here. Boom. So I got up there again. This is our first confirmation that the trade went into our area. We patiently waited. We didn't just jump in. We weren't as aggressive as the first one because we had a huge engulfing candle. And we could have gotten into the trade and been profitable, but that engulfing candle did shake me up a little bit, right? Because again, we're in an uptrend. It can go up at any minute. That's the importance of, that, or the notes that you do have to take when you take counter trade. Be okay with your trade, but also understand that it can go in the opposite direction at any moment because you did counter trade. So continuing on, I saw that it started to consolidate just a little bit, and I got into the trade immediately for a sell. Didn't want to miss the move for a second time and ended up taking that trade all the way up until TP again. And this was definitely one of those where I did hold for a while. It was a little bit annoying on this trade, but it went through, played out in our favor, and it ended up hitting TP right here, or whenever it happens. Boom. So we ended up holding TP right here. So we entered over here where the market is. Just move this over. So we ended up entering right here, and then we ended up holding the trade. It presented itself twice to us, really 4 times. I took the trade up here the first time, waited for this one, didn't get into this one, got in over here when it touched twice up there. So I got in right there, played it all the way down. I did have to hold because it didn't hit my TP right away. So this was one of those trades that I had to hold a while. Again, don't really like doing it personally, holding trades for a really long time. I'm somewhere in between a scalper and an intraday. All right, and then let's move on to our last few plays. So at that point, we are now officially 4-1 within the market, right? So first day we took a lesson. Second day we got 2 dubs. That's now 2-1. The following day after we got another 2 dubs, which is now 4-1, right? 4-1, took the trade right here, right? So the market starts to consolidate a little bit. I noticed that it's breaking out of this huge consolidation area and started to head towards the upside, right? And where did I enter? Again, this was one of those trades where I wasn't draw down for a little bit. So it ended up hitting me with an engulfing candle. I became aggressive on this entry. Because I got an engulfing candle, I decided to enter on the very next candle if it held, which it ended up holding. Then after that, it ended up dropping down a little bit. So this was like, oh man, we're going to head into drawdown. I was too aggressive. All the psychology starts to play through. You just got to take a deep breath and, you got to be comfortable in the red, okay? You can't expect to make $1,000 if you're scared to lose 100. You can't be scared to lose 1,000 if you want to make 10,000, so on and so forth. So this is one of those trades where it did, I'm not going to lie, I know I've been trading for some time now. This was one of those trades where it did test my psychology a little bit, and I'll tell you why right now. So I did take this W, but because I went in drawdown super early, I didn't maximize my opportunity for profits on this trade, right? I hit my TP1 and I was out of the trade. I didn't trade again that entire day, right? So as you can see here, I was in drawdown for a while, and then boom, I got aggressive. I was like, you know what? Fuck it. It hit my TP1. I am getting out of this trade. I made my money for the day, and I'm okay, right? And this one, I don't even think I closed that much on this trade. Probably like 42 pips overall on of a trade that could have hit for a potential 248. I just got my profits and I got out of there. I'm not gonna lie to you, right? I got out of there TP1 and ended my day. And then this is just to show you, the patience of it all, right? So I'm like, yeah, you see, I know I did the right thing. I got out exactly when I needed to get out. And then what ends up happening, the market ends up taking off toward the upside on that end over there, right? And then, mind you, right there, ends up hitting the complete 248 pips. This was just another learning curve. No, I didn't lose the trade. I made money on this trade, about 42, 45 pips in profit. I made money on the trade. Trust me, on a 100K account, you risk, your 1%. That's a good $400, right? So I made like 400 or 500 bucks on this trade. But because I was impatient, because I let the drawdown get to me instead of trusting the trade idea, I decided to close out as soon as I got the TP1, close my 42, 43 pip profit, and ended my day. And I wasn't patient enough, and it ended up actually going in my direction afterwards, exactly where I predicted. Again, this move was sent out in the community. A lot of people did eat off of this move. I just happened to, get impatient and not get back in the move. But we got people in the community who profited off that entire play, right? Moving on over into our next and final setup, right? Moving over into our next and final setup on this particular play, same play, right? So this is when I officially knew the uptrend was officially back on and the pullback was over. Was when my first move from the previous play ended up going in my direction and making new highs, right? Ended up making new highs, and on that same day ended up making, lower lows as well, going right back into the downtrend, into that consolidation area. Now, during the night, I also noticed that it was continuously going back up. It did break an area of resistance, and it just kept hovering above this area right here, the 4105 area. Kept hovering above this area, and I was like, you know what? This seems like a really good setup right now. Everything is showing uptrend momentum. The downtrend has officially started to slow down. I was like, all right, if I start to get huge engulfing candles towards the upside, and some form of consolidation where the candles just refuse to break, I'll go ahead and jump in for a buy. So it was giving me the higher highs, higher low areas that I was looking for. And then it started to consolidate around this area right here, as you can see my entry. So on this play, my stop loss was super, super tight, right? Because I was afraid that if it were to be in the wrong direction, it could shoot all the way down back to this area of support down here, or even lower, right? Because the market has been doing that all week. It shows us momentums of super highs, and then out of nowhere, it just drops down. So I wanted to be strategic. This particular day was also Friday. Anyone that knows me, I do not trade on Fridays, but I was very curious to see what this play would do, right? So I ended up getting into the trade once it consolidated in that area and gave me, strong momentums of buy, matched it up with all my other confirmations. And then this is where the magic happened, right? I was in drawdown 50% of the way. I was like, all right, you know what? This is why I don't trade Fridays. Fridays fucking suck. I hate Fridays. I prefer Mondays, vice versa of the 9 to 5 mentality or whatever. And then the magic and amazing happened. This is one of those oh yeah moments where you start to talk shit in the mirror. So ended up as soon as opening bell hit, this thing took off like a rocket, right? Soon as opening bell hit, again, I was in drawdown, just like scratching my head, like I shouldn't have done this shit, right? So I'll pause it right here. And this is where this thing took off like a rocket. On the very first candle, right? Immediately going over the 100 pip mark. It was a 200 pip. So this was like a I would say 4-to-1 risk to reward because it's 40, we'll say 50, 50, 50, 50, 50. This trade was damn near a 4-to-1 risk to reward trade. Now, this is when the amazing part happened. As soon as this engulfing candle finished on the 5 minutes, I immediately moved my stop loss into break even. Made it a risk-free trade. And this is again a perfect example, but on the right side, when the market can be super unpredictable, right? This thing shoots the fuck off to the moon. Mind you, after this candle hit right here, I took partials right here and moved my stop loss into break even, and the trade hits my stop loss. I'm sorry, not break even. I moved my stop loss into profit, right? Right at this area of that it technically used as support. And I just put it there because the last candle low, I was like, you know what? The last candle low is down here. I don't want to put it down there because I don't want to lose too much of my money. Let me just put it right. And it just so happened that it randomly hits the exact area where I put stop loss and then fucking takes off, right? Check this out right now. Then it just goes absolutely insane for the rest of the day. Right? That was over, I believe, 500 pips on this one singular play. Let's go ahead and stop the recorder so you can see exactly where everything. So you see how that happened? It took completely off and took a life of its own after that. That was to top off the Friday. And again, just kind of showing you my mindset throughout this entire time and process, right? Learning from my mistakes. Being impatient can be good or bad. It all just depends on what side you fall on, right? The psychology of things, right? I was going through emotions just like every other trader, but I tend to, just take a deep breath sometimes, just do what I'm supposed to do. Sometimes it's going to go my way, and sometimes it's not. And that's what a lot of traders need to understand. Sometimes it's going to go your way, and sometimes it's not. You don't beat yourself up over it. We know why we trade, and we know why we do this. I hope this wasn't a super, super long recap. But it was an amazing week. Again, without this, we went 6-1. 6-1 throughout the entire week, closing in an amazing 6K in weekly profit. So in 1 week alone, 6K, it was a great and amazing week. Next week, I look to trade a little bit less because it is towards the ending of the month and heading into the beginning of a new month. The news that we'll be having throughout the remainder of the week, end of the month, beginning of the month, is NFP week. NFP week tends to be super, super frustrating, can be good or bad. I would say definitely be patient during that week. And again, I send all these trades on our Billionaire Herrera community at school.com. The description will be down below. And make sure you check us out. I got a lot of students in there. I know you say, oh, it's $20, $20 a month. Every single month, a lot of these students ends up profiting way more than the measly $20 that they pay a month. I believe it's worth it. And once we get to a certain level within the community, that price will never be the same. So take advantage of it while it's there. I'll see you guys on the next video. This was just another recap of the week that we did have. And I'll always keep it transparent, right? If I take a couple lessons or if I have a complete losing week, I'll let you know as well. I'll let you know what I learned from those trades and then the psychology behind everything and keep moving forward. All right. Peace, guys. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. We're on the road to 500 subs. And let's get to it, man.